I like it.
Yeah, I was trying to add a little something to it, but I messed it up a little bit. But we are live, and I'll fix that for next time. You know, when you go live, nothing's ever perfect. But um,
No.
welcome. What's up, guys? Having our little morning coffee. We have a guest today. We have Brad Lind. Um, Marty, if you want to introduce Brad, I think that would be appropriate.
Brad Lynn, Hononegah High School, 1997 state champion at 189 pounds, the first ever state champion in our school of any sport. Changed the culture of our school. People decided they should work out more. And kids decided they should come wrestle. You could turn into something, and you could look at a picture of him and see like, hey, I want to be a state champ someday. And for some reason, it seemed to work out pretty good because we've had a ton of state champs since him. But he did change it. He changed the culture. Sorry, I'm still eating, Brad.
And Brad, what weight were you?
I started at my freshman year. I wrestled 145. I was like 6'4" and 145. I was pretty skinny. And then by my senior year, I wrestled 45, 71, or 60, 71, and 89.
Got it. And the reason why I ask is this is one of the things I've been wanting to do, and I think what a great opportunity to start doing it. Let's see if I can get this so we can view it. It's not the easiest thing to view. 1997 state bracket. I'll try to move this around. Okay. So any of these names come to mind? Any stories about these guys? Who they were?
Yeah, I was kind of I've always kind of been a wrestling junkie since I've been maybe in high school. And so I was following all the stats and keeping up with everybody and following wrestling as much as you could at that time. Our bracket was disproportionate. The way it worked back then, there wasn't any seeding. If you were a sectional champion, you were given a bye in the first round, and then otherwise they just were kind of randomly drawn into the bracket. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was kind of predetermined where everybody would go, but kind of in secret, because sometimes people would otherwise maybe try to even lose a sectional final or something. I was always trying to figure out a way to win the whole thing, so I would never cared where I was going to be seated. But the top guys on this bracket were all on the bottom. It was really the guy, the four at the bottom were probably for sure Bill Walter and John Loveridge and I were really a step above everybody else in that. The kid Dan Stevens was pretty tough too. It was by far the tougher side of that bracket. And back then there was a lot of disproportion like that. Sometimes you'd see really good matches in the quarters and semifinals. And you still do now, but maybe a little differently because of the lack of any seeding at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a positive that the state tournament has been seeded since. I mean, I don't know. I think my junior and senior year, it seemed to work out exactly the way that I think my bracket should have went. And so that was pretty nice. I mean, maybe I'm biased because it worked out in my favor, but I don't think it was very lopsided. But we've definitely seen some lopsided brackets in time, and the fact that sectional champs are seated is really nice. But yeah.
Back at this time, we had like the A6 All-American team. That was kind of probably the closest thing to a folk style pure who was the best, as far as just it was certainly subjective. But John Loveridge was a junior that year. He was second team A6 All-American the next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he wrestled and played football for NIU.
All right, well, take me through this tournament. This is fun. So you wrestle Wes Anderson from Grays Lake, and you beat him 17-6. So pretty convincing first round match.
I was nervous about it because I was really on a roll. I was dominating a lot of kids, and I thought that would be somebody that I would just walk through a sophomore. I really wasn't. I was always very serious about preparing for matches. I don't feel like I really took it for granted that I was going to win or anything. But I was frustrated during that match. I was like having more difficulty than maybe even the score reflects to try to really feel like I was getting going and this was going to be my weekend kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, I was just ahead of that kid. I was just, he's a very good wrestler. He actually did really well in his career. I think he probably placed in state at least 3 times, and maybe might have been a finalist or third or fourth anyway. But I was just ahead of him at that time, and it wasn't a very competitive match. But it just sometimes you wrestle and you're still in control of the match, but you just don't feel like it's working right, and that's kind of how it felt in that match for me.
Yeah,
but I was confident. I just moved on from it.
Yeah. Here's a good question, Marty. Do you remember anything about that match? Who was in the corner at that match?
Oh, I'm sure I was. Probably my brother too, I would imagine. Joe.
Yeah, we had 4 qualifiers that year, and Kevin Sulliver was a heavyweight, so maybe Marty and Joe probably were either both in it or
split up.
He's there.
That was just a little test to see where Marty's memory's at. The answer is not.
Oh, I remember a few other things we did that year though with Brad though too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, going into quarterfinals, you wrestle Dan Stevens. You said this is one of the better kids that was on the.
That kid was a truck. I mean, I'm very tall and relatively different build than many of the athletes that I competed with, and that guy was tough. He was really good defense. I really couldn't get anything going, and if I'm not mistaken, I might have been losing the match going into the second period. But it was either 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, something like that. It was no scoring was happening, and I just kind of chipped away at him. I was always in really, really good shape, and I just chipped away at him and finally found my openings, and I ended up pinning him, I think, in the second or third period. I caught him in like a cow catcher or something.
Yeah.
When I would say something like a cow catcher or something, it usually involved like strangulation. I was a master at if I was good at anything, it was figuring out how to cut off the blood flow through the carotid artery. So, I mean, I was I had a lot of little tricks. I had a lot of grips and tricks, and nothing that's probably all that revolutionary today. But I think I had some different stuff that I was doing back then that maybe not everybody was doing quite the way I was. And maybe my body type allowed for that a little bit differently too with certain leverage and stuff.
Yeah, anytime he got close to a guy's head, I told him, the guy in the chair with me, is like, he's going to choke him out.
Yeah.
Whenever he started creeping up towards the head.
Yeah. Well, a good front headlock is always going to have some pressure on that head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And then you go into the semis and you wrestled Loveridge, and you beat him 5-2. Good match. And then you go into the finals and you wrestle. How do you say it, Venny?
Yeah, Kevin Venny. The semis was actually really crazy. It was a tough match, and it was like you're really fighting hard for every position. And I kind of got to a point at the end of the third period with Loveridge, and I knew that I had broken him. And I don't mean broken him in a disrespectful way or anything, but I just knew that I had the tide had shifted completely in my direction. Let's call it that. And I remember I was on top and I looked at Marty in the corner. In my mind, I remember this vividly because I was really nervous for this match, and I was kind of giving him a look that I think he knew I wasn't saying should I let this guy up and should we just do this right now in front of everybody kind of thing. And Marty looked at me like, this is your chance to make the decision, and I decided to just chill and get out of there with the win because I knew he was a really tough wrestler.
Nice. Well, then you go into the finals and you wrestle Venny. You win 19-8, so pretty convincing. Like you said, you had a good semifinal match, which could have been the state finals match. You're saying?
Well, the finals match was against another younger guy, and he actually is a really good wrestler too, but he wasn't at the same level that I was at the time. He just was, again, a sophomore again, and he benefited from a easier top side of the bracket, certainly probably deserving of placing and so on, but his brother had won the state tournament the year before, and it wasn't without some drama. I scored 3 takedowns in the first period. First of all, Jason Christensen came out and pinned some guy in 17 seconds right before me. So I kind of felt like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I had more ego than I thought. I kind of felt like maybe I should have to do something now, in the finals. And I will say that I knew that I was gonna have an advantage over this kid. And so I scored 3 takedowns with the exact same shot in the first period.
Yeah.
And then right at the beginning of the second period, I like let the kid up, went for the same shot again, and he spladled me, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
I was in this split like pretty much almost the entire second period. And
Well-
I was actually watching it the other day, knowing that I was coming on this podcast just to really get my own opinion of after all these years, maybe I could admit if I was pinned or not.
Well,
And I wasn't. I for sure wasn't pinned.
yeah.
If you watch the video, I have to watch it with you to show you why. But you can see I have like yellow trim on my straps, and you can actually see my straps like on the one side are way up in the air, like almost complete. Dude, don't do that. Don't do that to me. I should have known that you guys would do this to me.
So this I don't necessarily have that. This is I think where you got a reversal and kind of changed the course of the match. Yeah. I don't think the video. I'd have to go back to see.
Yeah. So at this point, Marty was like right before this, I was spladled, and Marty's yelling at me to come to the corner because the way I got out of the spladle, I basically just lifted this guy's leg until I about broke it off, and they had to call an injury time. And so I just went to the center of the mat and got in the down position. And Marty's like, while the other guys over there getting attended to, I'm supposed to go over to my corner. I just wanted to do it. I just stayed in the middle because I was so frustrated.
And then, obviously when you get on top, it looks like you you used your advantages on the top position. You really like to wrestle on the top.
Yeah, that guy's not real active right now.
No.
I'll tell this story, Brad. I told Marty this before. That year, I was down, and Thacker at the time was big in the IWCOA, and we handed out the All-State awards or the letters after the matches. So we were sitting mat side, so I had a pretty good view of you on your back in that spladle, just thinking, oh my God, this can't be happening. Yeah. But you're right. You were never pinned. Your shoulder was up. But after the match, Benny comes over, and he's sitting there kind of bloodied, just smiling. He's the happiest guy in the whole place. I don't think he expected to be in the finals, but he comes over, he goes, God, I almost had him, didn't I? I go, you were close. He goes, man, I thought I was going to get it. Just awesome. The happiest could be and you literally beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. Like I said, he's a good wrestler, and he placed a couple more years. He's a tough kid.
I don't know if he ever placed again.
He did.
Did he?
He's placed at least one more time, but nonetheless, he just was.
All right. There's too much of the story. We need to talk about it.
Oh no.
Did you find it?
I went back. Keeps his head in.
This is not a flattering scenario here.
Don't worry, you're not the only guy that was on his back in the state final.
I know, but I see. I have enough respect just to keep to myself,
Well, I'm impressed that you wiggled out of there. That guy was.
You were close a couple of times.
It looks like it is. But wait, look at this. But this is all in the shadow. Wait until you see how this adjusts. Look at that strap on my singlet right there?
Yeah. It
shows that strap's like 14 inches
you're
off
almost,
the ground.
You're almost at 90.
I was almost in that exact same pitch. When he turns me there, my upper torso doesn't hardly turn.
Oh, wow, that hurts.
It's hard to imagine it because you just think of how people's bodies normally bend, but not everybody's as tall as I am. So
I already pulled my hamstring watching that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I don't like thinking about that. It's like it was very anticlimactic. It was not what I had envisioned this moment for all these times, and even after the match was over, I was kind of like, let's get out of here.
Yeah. That's a tough way to start the tournament or start the finals, but you wrestled through that, and then obviously once you got on top, you exposed them, and you finished the tournament winning 19-8.
At the time, that was a record for most points in a finals match.
Really? And you became Hononegah's first high school state champ.
In any sport.
In any sport.
Yeah,
wow. Well, cool. And, I guess we could kind of chat a little bit about this. Like, what'd you end up doing afterwards? And
I went – so my junior year, I was in high school. I was – really sick. I had 3 kidney surgeries right during the wrestling season at the Mayo Clinic and St. Mary's Hospital and right next to the Mayo Clinic there. And it was just really rough. I didn't accomplish very much during my senior year in high school or my junior year. I ended up going out to juniors, and I actually went to the junior world team trials and took 4th. So I didn't even go to state my junior year. I like got beat at sectionals. Then I went to the junior world team trials like 3-4 months later, whatever it was, when I was healthy, and I took 4th. And then I went to junior nationals and took 6th to Fargo. And so I got a little bit of attention, not a ton, but I got some attention. I ended up signing early to the University of Missouri, and I went there for 2 years and started there. I started there as a true freshman, and then I redshirted. I won the spot again as a sophomore, but I redshirted the next year and wrestled in the big. Well, it was the Big 12, but really it was the same as the Big 8. We had the same teams, and the 4 Texas schools didn't have any wrestling. So, I did okay my freshman year. I was like 19 and 16, and then my sophomore year when I was redshirting, I actually I was doing a lot better. I wrestled in just as tough a competition, and I was 19 and 6, and then I ended up transferring to the University of Northern Iowa. We had coaching change. We had some things going on at Mizzou, and I ended up just things didn't work out for me with wrestling there, and some family things happened, and I decided to move home and finish my career at Rockford College, and that was the end of my wrestling career.
And then even after that, so I saw you posted not too long ago showing some of your old fighting days, and it was interesting because Corey Anderson, he said on the post that he didn't even know you fought, and I was like, wow, yeah. That's so crazy. Like obviously how it's not it wasn't publicized. There was no podcast, there was no social media or anything, so like you had to be within a small circle to kind of know that you guys were doing all that stuff.
Yeah, me and a handful of guys from Hononegah we're all doing it. That we're all postgraduate from high school or whatever, college, maybe a little beyond college, and it was a lot of fun. We actually had a decent amount of success. It was a different world than it is now in terms of that sport. We weren't in the very first wave of it, but we were right behind it, and so it wasn't paying a lot of money. The top guys were starting to get paid quite a lot of money, but it was a difficult thing to try to be excellent at it. To me, it was a little bit more than a hobby. I was working full time, and I'd try to train a little bit, and then I'd go fight. And I would have liked to have trained a lot more, but I'd already had a baby and was obligated to do a lot of other things. But yeah, I did MMA for a while. I fought 19 pro fights. I actually fought a lot of really good guys, like people that you'd know, a couple maybe. And it was a lot of fun. And I did it with Justin Weeman and Dan Hart, Aaron Arnsmeyer, a handful of guys that Tony Schofield, a handful of guys that had wrestled with us on our high school team. We were all kind of doing it. We all kind of found it on our own and came together and did it. It was really fun.
Well, the one question I had about that is I saw that you went and fought in Russia, and I was like, how did somebody talk you into doing that? Because in a fight, normally if you go to Russia, they're setting it up for their guy.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience for sure. Literally, I got my eye cut open. But it was interesting. Like I had really started to imagine if you're doing something part-time that other people, you're starting to get to the point where you're fighting guys that are all full-time fighting. Right. That's like where I was caught in. I was winning and beating all the guys that were kind of on the regional circuit. And then I was kind of moving my way up. In fact, I fought Stephan Bonner, who was, a big name. And back at that time, he ended up fighting on Forrest Griffin in The Ultimate Fighter and kind of saved the sport, that fight did. So after, I got up to a certain level, there's some managers that were managing other guys and stuff. And what would kind of happen is like, they would be working with a matchmaker and they'd need a fighter. And what happened is I was working, one of my guys that I'd trained with some and would help us out some was Dave Strasser, who's a UFC fighter. And he was going to go fight in Russia, and they had a spot open for 205. And, his manager was asking Dave about it. And I ended up just getting an opportunity. And it was definitely sketchy. Let me tell you, it was a nice arena. I mean, it was a big event and everything, but I mean, it was pretty sketchy.
Yeah. I mean, in the fight world, there's a lot of, hand-picked opponents and stuff. And I would imagine that like they knew more about you than you probably knew about the opponent. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm trying to say, Dalton, is I'm pretty sure the Russian mafia was running this event.
Oh yeah.
And it was sketchy, but like Fedor Emelianenko, he was like he wasn't on the card, but he was part of the event, and All the fighters were really good. This was like a very legit event. The guy I fought had already fought a couple times in Pride, which was like probably bigger than the UFC at the time.
Yeah.
And I just ended up getting cut really bad right away. And it wasn't horrible, but it was, I had a pretty good idea that they were going to stop the fight after the first round. And so I just tried to like slam the guy, picked him up over my head and like slammed him, but it didn't finish him off. So I had a joke.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of go for broke. That's what I had to do.
Yeah. But just thinking about how there was a group of young males who were kind of, wrestling and fighting and training, and they were all around the Hananiga like program. Marty, how beneficial was it to have like a group of like young men that were like really, successful obviously in their high school experience, but still like, still training hard? How helpful was that to kind of continue to develop the room and the culture?
Well, they trained in the wrestling room.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, that's where they
allegedly we trained in the wrestling room.
They did. I mean, I told people of it. And the cool thing about it was though, is they would show up early. So then they'd come into practice and drill with guys and stuff. Hananiga is just a unique environment in wrestling. I mean, those who are really good and from the past will always come back and help out or do whatever. And Brad was probably one of the best of all of them. But yeah, I mean, I would always sit after practice and watch those guys train. And Jim LaForge kind of helped out, or he tried to study the sport somebody had to be kind of a coach. Well, I sure as heck wasn't going to do it because I was coaching wrestling, but Jim LaForge was a big part of it too, because he kind of helped them and he studied stuff and he's smarter than hell. But those guys, I mean, it's that class when he was 1997, I think there was 5 guys from that team that all wrestled and fought then.
Yeah.
And some of it was good and some of it was bad. And one of the worst was, we were up in Wisconsin one time and a bunch of guys were fighting and Weeman was fighting and he came back afterwards. I went back into the locker room and he didn't know where he was. He didn't know what was going on. His face was pure blood. And I looked at Jim LaForge and I said, I'm done. I'm never going to go watch this again. Watch these guys get, 90% of the time they beat the hell out of guys. But that night he was just,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a very unique culture. I loved it.
Dan Hart's main strategy in fighting was to let the guy hit him until he got too tired, and then and Dan would just look bloody after every fight, but he would usually win.
The Rocky method.
He was. It was literally like that. It was. Insane.
I mean,
it was like, I'm not saying that all of it was all that dramatic. Some of the fights were kind of sad, honestly. Yeah. But Dan's fights were always like a Rocky movie.
Yeah.
And then we had Tony Schofield, who was Gumby, who would just get in the most bent places, but he was in great position. He didn't, he was always that team of 1997. Brad's senior year was probably one of. I would go toe to toe with any other team at Hananiga, and I still think it was one of the best teams ever. We had 4 Division I athletes come out of there. We had another state champion on that team in Brad Schrader. We had multiple place winners on that team that year that were freshmen. And the only thing that happened is we didn't win the regionals because when we wrestled East during the year, we had a 215-pound weight class, just like most, because it was going to come around the following year. And we had a kid named Duncan Mayer who pinned 21 guys at 215. And he was caught between Brad Lynn and Kevin Sellover. So he wrestled everything. But then when it got to the regionals, we didn't have, East had a little bit of a boost on us because we didn't have Duncan and couldn't wrestle him. But yeah, we were 21-1, and our one loss during the year was to St. Charles East, and I think they had 6 players ranked at number 1.
They were loaded that year.
And then our other loss was in regionals against East, and the East had an unbelievable team, and the Pitts brothers from Guilford went over there that year and stuff like that. But yeah, I still think you can head toe to toe. Like toughest dudes on the mat. Oh man.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Speaking of toughest dudes, I think this would be great because, even when I helped coach at Hananiga in 2011, Brad, you were still around in the room, helping and stuff. So going over the years, you had an opportunity to wrestle with a lot of the tough guys that came through the room. If there's anybody that stands out particular that you can have stories about, or if there's a collection of stories with different guys, because again, I don't know if you got to wrestle with, did you get to wrestle with Miller? Were you there with Grant and then obviously the Dwyers. So yeah, you just tell me some stories about guys that you got to
I was
train.
basically like a part-time coach at Honeyga for 16 years. I was a volunteer coach. I never tried to become an assistant coach or anything like that. I just came in, and my main thing is I would come in about two days a week and practice. Sometimes I try to get in there 3 or 4 days a week, maybe especially as the season was going longer. We got closer to the end of the season, I'd start coming in more, making a little more sacrifice. But I mean, I had a full-time job, so I'd have to sneak out of work or talk to my boss. And I was always in sales, so it's kind of like if I got my job done, it was fine. But so I would come up there, and really the thing is like when you're in the upper weights, there's sometimes guys that just get to a level where there's really not that many people that can practice with them. Like, for example, Grant Miller was ranked number 1 in the country, and he was a heavyweight. Like, who's going to practice with him? Like, is Justin got the skills to practice with him, or does Marty? Like, yeah, but they're not nearly his size.
Yeah.
And so I would get called on to do that a lot, and we happened to have a lot of good heavyweights. Maybe it was a little bit because I was helping them, but I think a lot of it just was that they were just tough kids and they were good. And Grant Miller, honestly, was I can't really say to Cassiope because I only ever practiced with Cassiope when he was a little bit younger, like 8th grade, freshman, sophomore year. But Grant Miller was really good, and Matt Dwyer was really good. Those would be probably the 2 bigger guys that I worked with a lot, and Steve, really. But Steve was smaller than me. I didn't practice with him as much. But even Steve, like I did not like to practice with Steve. I'm pretty sure Steve broke my nose. And
you're not the only guy, probably.
Yeah, and Steve was mean, man. But I mean, I as far as just the toughest guy, I would honestly probably say Steve Dwyer. But as far as the guys that I practiced with, I would say Grant was an unbelievable athlete, and he was really hard. Like when I'd be like 4 or 5 years out of high school, out of wrestling in college, and I'd try to practice with Grant, and it was like you really had to be ready to go. It was kind of like it was a fight, and he's a kid and I'm an adult, and so it's like, but he's probably just as good or better than me, and so I'm not really allowed to fight, but he kind of is, And I remember I 5'd him one time in practice, and Marty just freaked out on me. And I remember one time, like, we had all the teams up getting ready for like sectional practice, and Belvedere was there, and I remember like Thacker was like, "Oh, somebody doesn't want to give up control of the title over here, because me and Grant are beating each other up in the corner or whatever, And Matt Dwyer was really good too, and I really loved working with Matt Dwyer. He's probably one of my favorite kids that I got to work with.
Yeah, and
just
then
in the sense that I've just connected with him, and I felt like I was able to actually do a lot to help him. I felt like he kind of needed my help a little bit through a few times throughout the season, and it just it was great, and he did a great job too.
My philosophy in the wrestling room was, if we have somebody that's better than everybody in the room, I got to find somebody that can break him down. And I would go out, I'd grab Brad, I'd grab whoever. Just come on, you got to come help us. We got a guy that somebody's got to break him. There's nobody in the room that can break him. And I used to call on those guys, a lot of the alumni guys, to come back and help me out.
Sometimes you'd see, like, when I'd walk in the room, all the guys, like the heavyweights kind of would, they'd be warming up, and they'd kind of, oh no, because I would really make people work hard. Even like when we were drilling, nobody wanted to drill with me because I'd get up, I'd turn right around, I'd be ready to do the next drill, like just a different intensity of it all. I wasn't like a psychopath or just one of those guys who was hard to practice with. Like I could flow and everything, but I just was working the whole time, and I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. Like that's the kind of thing that I think that you just kind of fight for all those little inches throughout your practices and stuff, and that helps the other guys, like when they can see what it's supposed to look like,
Yeah, I always say there's never a one-person drill in wrestling. It's always a two-person. So, having somebody like you come in and keep the pace high, keep the focus and intention on task, and not letting your mind wander. That's how people get better. So, my question was, if you're wrestling with these heavyweights and you're going hard, how much of the room did you guys take up?
A lot. Yeah, it would be like the whole other team would be over here and we'd be over here. We'd have like a third of the practice room often.
Yeah, we kind of
we didn't stop anywhere you went. Like I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to make this sound, dramatic, but like you try practicing with somebody like the number one heavyweight in the country, and you're going to be like choking each other in the corners and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a difficult. It's not like what's happening over here is not exactly what's happening over here in the practice room. You know what I mean? And not to say that there weren't other great wrestlers in the room, but this was at a different level sometimes in practice than some of the other wrestlers were, and big guys,
Yeah. Well, Grant is somebody we've talked about a little bit, and I'm always curious about doing like a look back and see who are the best of the best, and obviously Grant is somebody on the top all-time list for heavyweight guys. He was like one of the first guys to really like break out at the heavyweight.
I'm sure he has to be the first age group national champion from the area. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know who else.
Well, and even
I have
maybe
a pretty good idea of the history, and he was literally ranked 1 or number 2 in the country his whole high school career at his age group.
Yeah. Yep. We're hoping maybe we can reach out and get him on and chat with him about his thoughts of his high school experience. Because I remember he was like A6 All-American team. Yeah, he was the guy on everything. So but yeah, Marty, Dan, you got anything else to ask Brad about story wise?
Well, I know every story.
Well, hey, one thing I would just maybe offer is just what I think could be helpful for coaches that are listening or whatever is just what I feel was maybe a key to a lot of that. And one of the keys to that is just really when people get into high school, they're still searching to find where they're supposed to fit in, what they're supposed to do. And I guess I just felt like what I found in wrestling was people that actually gave me some attention, people that invested something into me and believed in me. I had that at Harlem Cougars where I came from. We didn't have a wrestling club when I was younger. We started it right around the time I was in high school at Hononegah. And I had some great coaches that put some attention into me, like Bill Turnmeyer and Steve Carlson and a bunch of other guys. But then when I came to Hononegah, again, Marty just like breathed a lot of confidence into me. And he would tell me over and over again, from the time I was a freshman, that I would be a state champion. And, my 8th grade year, I was like maybe 25-10. Nobody was thinking I was going to be a state champion. I lost in the blood round of the IKWF state tournament. Like, I wasn't on anybody's radar, and I never thought I could be a state champion. And I'd probably hear Marty say that to me 1,000 times before I even considered the possibility that could actually be true, And so I just think that's what the sport did for me, and what the guys like Marty and Joe and all the coaches at Hononegah, we had great coaches, a bunch of great assistant coaches, and at the kids club. And I just think that the idea of like believing in somebody and giving them a place to thrive and grow, like if I didn't have that, I don't, I'm not trying to say I was from the streets or anything, but I don't know where I would be, and that investment that somebody chose to make in me and believe in me, that came before I could believe in myself.
Yeah. Well, let's pull on that string, because I've had a lot of conversations recently with people, and one of the things that I've noticed is it's really easy to be negative and cynical, and it's very hard to be positive and optimistic, even when you don't see an optimistic future. And to give Marty some more credit, like when I was in the room and around Marty, I don't have a memory of like Marty's secret techniques that he showed or anything like that. But the thing that sticks out the most about Marty is the positive words of affirmations that he would give to people. When guys were running, he'd say, "Great job, man. Great job, man." He'd constantly ingrain this like self-belief and confidence. And it's like, it's contagious. And once you start believing in yourself, you can start doing stuff. So obviously that is one thing that I agree so wholeheartedly that I saw firsthand, and you guys probably experienced. But going into what you were talking about is like, kids are kids, right? So kids don't necessarily have a framework of like what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, and I hear a lot of coaches that will judge kids as if they're finished products, and they won't give them that self-belief that they can be more than what they currently are. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think? I guess I could ask Marty this, Brad, McNames. Like, how hard is it to quiet that initial reaction of like, this kid's a bad kid, he's always in trouble, I don't want him in here, and then transitioning to, okay, I see a future for this kid. We got to figure out how to get this kid to believe in himself, how to get this kid to make right decisions, better choices. Again, maybe not a question there, but like, just want to hear your thoughts on it, because I've heard a lot of people recently talk to me about kids in this negative general way of like just writing them off, and I feel like, but they're kids, the kids are stupid, kids are ignorant. That's the nature of being a child. But as adults, as leaders, it's like, how do you get them to go down the path of improvement and growth and development and stuff like that? So,
It's kind of ironic that you talked about that, because there were times that I'd be in my classroom, I was a special ed teacher, and I would be in my classroom, and the administrator would bring a person to my door, and they're like, Marty, can you come out in the hallway? I'm like, sure. So I come out, and they're like, this kid has to make a decision. He goes, he's either going to get in trouble here at school, or he's going to go out for wrestling with you. He goes, he's got a choice. And I had that probably 10 times, that they would bring a kid down and say, he has two choices. He's either going to go down this way, or he's going to come to your wrestling room. And most of them came to the wrestling room.
Yeah, I would say it was the same. And I don't know why, maybe administrators seek out the wrestling coach, but it'd be the same here. They come, hey, we have this kid. Can he come out for wrestling? And a lot of times those guys, they needed an outlet.
Yep.
Sometimes they're not understood. They can't sit down in the classroom. They need to be active. They need to expend energy, and you get them in here, and they got a little bit of a freedom in that wrestling. It's legalized fighting.
Mm-hmm.
When you get going in the practice room.
Yeah, that tough guy attitude goes away.
Right. All of a sudden they, and sometimes some of those guys didn't like it, and they left. They never came back. But a lot of those guys would probably attribute, graduating high school because they were part of a team.
That's for sure.
Like Brad said, Marty encouraged him, told him 1,000 times, you're going to be a state champ. Well, you might not be telling this kid he's going to be a state champ, but you're giving him a family, because you don't know what they're going home to outside of school either. So they're looking for the attention, and that was, I always thought, bring those kids in, because it's.
Yeah, I said this the other day to somebody, but like, wrestling is the perfect sport for a bad kid.
100%.
Because a bad kid is just a view of like how they're emotionally reacting to something. And I don't think anything other than wrestling, teaches you how to control your emotional reaction to things, right? Like, if you and I play golf and I had a bad shot and I get really upset, I can break the club, right? Like, nobody's going to beat me up for it. Now in wrestling, you give up a takedown, you start emotionally reacting. Like, you still got to get on the line with the guy that just did it. So it's like, you have to quiet that reaction and focus on problem solving, as opposed to being stuck in that emotional state. And like you said, the fight itself, I mean, young men specifically, I think organized, safe spaces for fighting is like the best thing for them. And wrestling is that avenue for it. So
go in the wrestling room and had any of the punching bags still hanging there.
Yeah,
I figured it's better than punch each other in the face. They could punch the bag. Some of those guys, it was just brutal fights, and I just put them at the bag.
Yeah, I don't think the bag's in there anymore, though, Marty.
Is it? Oh, that's right. They put new doors in there. That's right. It is gone.
Yeah,
they need to get another one.
Yeah, but Brad, you want to expand on that? I know you have some good insight.
I'm thinking a little bit too, just of like instilling. I mean, it's all interrelated, but I think like instilling confidence in somebody. You can actually instill the beginning seeds of confidence in somebody. They're going to have to, take it over. They're going to have to take ownership of it at some point, but you can kind of plant the seeds there. And maybe it takes 1,000 times, and I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 times of breathing confidence into somebody, And then eventually they're going to have to cultivate it. And I just think that's kind of something that wrestling and Marty and a few other folks did for me. And, I just even think of an example like this. Like I would decide I wanted to win. And I wanted to be as good as I could be. And maybe I'm a freshman and I'm 26 and 12 and don't make it to state, right? How do I decide that I want to beat the best guys? It's like, well, I guess I'll go to practice every morning when nobody's there. We'd go work out there and be like, I'd be the only person there, or it'd be me and Marty, and that's it, nobody else. And then it's like, let's go to all these summer tournaments and go wrestle with these guys that are way better than me. And then you have to go wrestle and just get smoked, and just that battle of like, it takes a ton of perseverance and it takes a ton of courage to kind of keep fighting. And eventually, if you keep doing it, like you get a little bit better. And then finally you kind of get lucky sometimes. And then that makes you confident, right? Like you just attribute that luck to skill or to toughness. And I remember one time I'm wrestling, I'm 16 years old, I'm wrestling Tom Chesky, and he's on the cadet world team. And I'm just crushing him, and I don't know how come I'm crushing him. I have no idea what's going on, and I have him on his back and I'm almost pinning him. And Marty's like on another mat, coaching another kid. It's a freestyle tournament this summer. Like I'm on my own, and Marty comes over there and I'm like, oh, I'm winning, I'm like telling him this during the match, and then you start to believe. And my point is just that, like, I think good coaches, they kind of get ahead of you. They kind of they lead you in confidence, and they start to suggest ideas in your mind that that you really probably never would have come up with on your own.
Yeah,
like I could actually beat those guys, and eventually you start to believe it, and it's a very important thing that we can do for young people. It is believe in them, and I'm really grateful for the coaches that did that for me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the role of a coach is much more than just the technique and the organizational standpoint. A lot of it's psychological. It's a lot of it's teaching people how to handle their emotions, how to use them for good, and then obviously see futures. I think I always get in arguments with people when they go, well, he's not motivated. And it's like, well, what do you think lack of motivation is? And lack of motivation to me is a lack of a compelling future to work towards. So if you have a compelling future to work towards that you see in your head, if you have a vision for what you want to achieve in the future, it's easy to wake up early. It's easy to get going. It's easy to do all that stuff. When you don't have that compelling future to look forward to, it's easy to be lazy or disconnected or, unmotivated. And I think it's the job of the leaders to kind of help that individual cultivate and create a compelling future to work towards. So yeah, this is great because I think a lot of high school coaches need lessons in leadership development because of this, because of so much of it being about the sport, and we focus so much on the X's and O's of the wrestling, and we kind of somehow forget the person-to-person relationship aspect. And so, yeah, I love this topic. I think one last thing I think you'd be great conversation about, Brad, is like perspective, like thinking about perspective as an adult and like trying to navigate how you maintain, like, how would you go back into coaching wrestling today, knowing that winning is awesome and winning is, important for the personal development aspect. Like you have to try to win to get the most out of yourself, but you also have to maintain this perspective that your losses aren't going to define you. Your wins aren't going to define you. Right. And like who you become as an individual, as an adult, as a father, as a community member, like that's pretty critical. So, share some of your thoughts on like how to like think about perspective with what we've been talking about with all this stuff.
I think probably the biggest thing I'm a pretty similar minded to Marty in terms of kids club, I think. So first of all, I think that really at the kids club level, you should really, I kind of think it's too intense. It's a little over the top. And I think sometimes parents are a little too aggressive on that. So I think that we should make sure that we emphasize having a lot more fun in wrestling, and really at all levels, but especially at the kids club level. But I absolutely want to win, and I think as the kids get older in kids club, I'm not saying that there's not a big emphasis on winning and trying to compete and maybe doing some extra things. I just think it needs to be put into perspective. That's my view on it, and I think that if I just think there's nothing better than really. Most of the time, I as a coach work with the more higher level kids because of the nature of the role I was in. If I was a assistant coach full time, I would have been more distributed in the work that I did. But in the nature of the role that I was in, I worked with the more elite kids, and I just I think that you need to try to reduce the fear of losing somehow, while still emphasizing the effort towards the work. And I think probably guys like Cale Sanderson have figured out how to do that really well. I think I'm probably more of a Tom Brands, Dan Gable type of approach. That's what I learned, and that's what suited me. But I think everybody's a little different, and so maybe if I was going to continue to coach or coach again, I might just try to de-emphasize the fear of losing. I might not try to show as much frustration about losing or not competing well, and I might try to be a little bit more driven positively. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that there's not times to be constructive or what have you. So I'm not sure if that was clear enough, but that's kind of where I'm at. I think emphasizing more fun and helping people to realize that as long as they're working hard and doing their best, that we're still with them.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think you did great. Well, guys, yeah, we're finishing up on the hour. Is there any other topics that you want to jump in with Brad or outside of Brad and just general wrestling topics? We got some people in the chat. We had David Woosley pop in. We also had this is an interesting one. We had Jason Bryant. You guys all know Jason Bryant, right?
Oh yeah.
I think Jason Bryant from I think he's doing nationals right now, right? So
yeah, I think for a long time Jason Bryant was with Intermat. I don't know who he's with right now, but he's been a long time wrestling supporter and follower and media person.
Thanks for jumping in, Jason Bryant.
Awesome.
Although it might, yeah, it is. This is double checked with the legendary Jason Bryant. Well, welcome to the check. And yeah, anything else, guys? Marty, Dan, Brad?
I'm excited for the wrestling season. I'm still kind of a wrestling junkie. I don't follow high school as much as I used to, but I do still follow it. I went to the state tournament the last couple of years. I'm excited for that. And I follow a lot of college and international wrestling. So if you guys ever want to take on it, get me back on, I'll be happy to.
Well, who's your team? Who's your college team right now? Because we've,
Well, I mean, I wrestled at Missouri for a couple of years. I didn't graduate from there, so it's kind of a little pill in my. But I still really like Missouri a lot. Right now they're down though. They're not. We lost Rocky Elam in the transfer portal, so that was disappointing. I don't know what the situation might have just been a graduate transfer where some people educationally have to move to something different. But yeah, I like Iowa wrestling a lot. Right now I'm paying a lot of attention to Illinois. I think Illinois is on the uptick. I think they're coming back, and I especially like Cannon Webster. His dad was one of my teammates at Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. What do you like about you say the uptick? What's your perspective of the uptick?
I just think Illinois is getting some good recruits. I think they got Wyatt Medlin coming in. I think Brian Medlin's probably a pretty good fit for them as a coach for their their club side. And I just think they're building. I mean, they beat Missouri twice this year. They're probably on that. They're probably on that number 10. They're probably on that 8 to 12 spot right now, maybe 8 to 14 spot. And I think that's an improvement in the last couple of years. And I think that I think they could continue to move up. And I think Illinois wrestling has always been good at the high school level, but I think that from what I'm seeing, I mean it's right there. If we can continue to get some good recruits at Illinois, I think that Illinois could come back and be in a top, maybe competing for a trophy in a couple of years.
Got it. All right, so you're Illini right now. That's who you're.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite team of choice, but I'm hot on them. And
Well,
I
if you go to
always like to be from Illinois.
Again, so we did this a lot, and when we used to go to the nationals together, you'd always have a shirt at least one round. What team you're sporting. So you're at the nationals. What team? What shirt do you have on,
Missouri.
and what section are you in?
Missouri.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All righty.
Missouri. I'll say it again. Yeah, I mean, I wrestled there. It's the closest thing I have to my college, and I really followed Missouri pretty closely ever since.
Well, they definitely have some good. They have some good Illinois kids. They got Mendoza, and I think he's not wrestling for sure this year.
He's
but
going to wrestle.
But he is going to be in the mix for sure the next 4 years. They also got Teague Travis from Okie State. They just transferred in.
His dad wrestled at Missouri when I was there. He had just graduated when I was just coming there, so I would see him at and stuff. And
with all the transfer stuff and the NIL stuff, I definitely think Missouri is going to be one of those teams that benefit from a couple guys not necessarily being the starter, but they're extremely talented. And I think Missouri is going to be able to get some of those. So and Missouri's always been around. They know when to really go and push for a trophy, and when they're down. I think when teams are down, they're just down. It's just hard to compete with the guys that are, that are winning. I mean, again, I just watched Penn State's backup Joe Seeley win the scuffle. Right? It's that's just they're up. They're very, very up. So it's hard for them to compete, but it'd be interesting to see the next couple of years for those teams.
I don't know how long Missouri's Brian Smith wants to coach. Maybe he wants to coach a lot longer. I'm not sure, but I always felt like if they would get Ben Askren to come there, that would be the next smart move for them. Maybe put Brian in a different position and bring in Ben. Now, obviously, Ben has a lot of health issues, so I don't know where he's at in that. That's changed a lot in the last couple of years, but if they could get a coach like that, I think these guys that have a little bit more recent success, in wrestling and stuff, that could be good for them. But
well, recruiting is definitely a big thing, but I actually think that the next some of these programs definitely have the infrastructure to hire the best recruiter, right? Okie State hires David Taylor, but the Oklahoma State foundation basically is really supportive around him. So he gets to recruit, but he also has a ton of people to help with the NIL, the fundraising, and all that stuff. A lot of coaches that get hired, I think it has less. It should be. I don't know if the ADs are going to change, but it's going to be less about how good of a coach or how good of an athlete you are, and actually how much of an organizational, CEO, leader, fundraiser, that role I think is going to be more important because.
But I think sometimes when you bring in, do you think Oklahoma State would have all the same exact level of support they have if they didn't bring in David Taylor? It goes hand in hand. David Taylor brought those people, and they brought him. They all came together. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure those people were still going to donate and do whatever they're going to do. But don't you think they're doing a lot more now that they have David Taylor and they have this more new hope and faith and confidence? It goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
I do agree with you though, Dalton. I 100% agree with you, and that's why I think somebody like Ben Askren would have been a perfect fit.
Yeah,
I agree. I was just talking with Danny Martinez about that last night. A program. Let's go Missouri. They look for a new coach. If you bring in Kyle Dake brings a lot with him.
Yeah.
Besides just wrestling experience, just like you said,
the number one guy out there is Jordan.
Yeah, or Jordan Burroughs. I mean, they bring in money follows them. You're not starting all over. And like you say, Dalton, it's not so much about what they know. It's what they're bringing to the table, what the program's going to get out of having.
Yeah, I think
Jordan Burroughs as your head coach.
If I was Nebraska, or if I was another Big Ten team that was looking for a new coach, I'm not saying that Nebraska is, but these guys are probably getting ready to think they got to be getting close to wanting to move on, right? And I'd be trying to.
Well, the salaries are just starting to get somewhere, though. Brad.
Yeah, maybe they'll want to do it for 10 more years, but Jordan Burroughs has got to be the number one guy that you want if you're trying to build the whole thing.
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I'm
know.
sure these coaches that have been coaching for the last 20 years are starting to see their salaries actually increase a little bit. So they're like, oh, ho, ho, ho,
Yeah, I agree. It's become a lot more, you know, it's been a much better position for in the last 10 years than ever before.
Yeah. For some programs, for sure. A lot of programs are going to be on the chopping block, but I think the top 20 programs in the country at Division I level wrestling are going to see vast improvement. So if you're a top 20 program, you're definitely in a good position for college wrestling and opportunities for your program. So, but yeah, guys, that was awesome. Brad, thanks for coming on and chatting. Yeah, we'll reach out. We're going to do this every Wednesday. I'm going to try to reach out to some people and bring them on and relive the glory days and also chat some current events and stuff. So whenever you're not busy and you want to jump on and tell some stories or talk wrestling, you let me know, and you're welcome to do so.
Yeah,
Everybody had full lineups.
you guys are doing a great job. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good to see you, Brad.
Good seeing you, Brett.
Good to see you.